Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Colin Studu. Colin, wow, let me try that again.
You've only done
Well,
it 100 times, yeah.
400 times. All right. Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them so you can build it yourself. Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Colin Stewart. Today, I'm rejoined by Jacob Bank from Relay, and we are going to have a conversation. We're going to have an update conversation about kind of what's happened, what's changed. Because we talked a year ago, just over a year ago, and you were
It's
in
crazy
this,
that was only a year ago. A lot has happened since then.
and the whole thesis for the podcast and the repositioning around the founder stories was I could have initial conversations and then wait until they take off a couple years later. And then I saw a post of yours on LinkedIn, and the customer love, the metrics, the reach. I was like, man, we've got to have the conversation because I'll admit, when we first talked, I was like, I kind of get the product. It does a lot of really interesting things. I kind of want to do those interesting things. And I'm typically an early adopter of stuff like this. I created an account and I didn't do anything with it because I'm like, there's so much here I don't get it. But obviously that's changed. And so I want to talk about what's changed.
Maybe the most valuable starting point would be I can tell you about the three phases of the company we've gone through since we launched and what
Yeah.
was going on in each phase. So, first, for some context, Relay.app is an AI agent and workflow building platform. It is a horizontal tool, which means any company can use it for a wide variety of use cases. You could use it to extract information from your invoice emails. You could use it to automatically draft LinkedIn and Twitter posts for you. You could use it to automatically analyze all of your customer calls and give your sales reps coaching. So it's a very broad, flexible platform.
Mhm.
And horizontal products like this are hard to bring to market for two reasons, at least. Number one is they're hard to market because you have to figure out positioning and messaging that communicates who it's for in a way that they understand what it's for. And then second, you need to find a channel by which you can reach them. It's not as simple as saying, well, our ICP is HR leaders at technology companies between 500 and 1,000 people, and we're going to get this list of targets and we're going to, cold email them. So from both the positioning and messaging side and from a go-to-market channel side, it can be harder. And then second, it's harder from a product perspective because you need to build a single tool that can serve a cupcake bakery all the way up to the customer success team of a Fortune 500 company.
Mhm.
Both in terms of functional breadth, industry breadth, and then breadth in the level of technical sophistication of the users. So that's kind of the context of like what the product is and what some of the challenges are. When we first launched in October 2023, the most approachable way to bring a product like this to market was to anchor it against an existing market leader. And the way we chose to do that was to position ourselves as the modern alternative to Zapier. Zapier is a well-known product. They're a multi-billion dollar company. They are synonymous with if this then that automation for work use cases for a broad audience. Funny enough, if
Mhm.
this then that sort of should have been the leader in that space because they invented the term, but they ended up
Yeah.
focusing more on connected home and consumer use cases. So Zapier sort of inherited IFTTT's crown in the 2015 to 2020 time. And we had seen this pattern work successfully for many other classes of SaaS. For
Mhm.
example, Linear is the modern alternative to Jira. Adio is the modern alternative to Salesforce. Loops is the modern alternative to MailChimp, et cetera, et cetera. In every category where it felt like there was a 12, 15-year-old incumbent leader, there was an opportunity for a new player with a simpler UI, maybe more AI forward to gain mindshare. So that's how we positioned ourselves in October of 2023. We're the modern Zapier alternative. So if you're the kind of company that picks Linear, if you're the kind of company that picks Adio, because they're well designed, well crafted, really performant, high quality, built for fast moving, strong teams who care more about high quality end user experience than they care about enterprise checkboxes. We were that kind
Mhm.
of product. And that's when, back to our previous conversation, that's when we first exited the desert and it started to feel
Mhm.
like we had a little bit of product market fit. We got our first 100-ish paying customers. We got our first dose of user love. Our retention started to be pretty good. So we were starting to stack cohorts and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is turning into a real business." That was phase 1. October of 2023 to June 2024. Phase two, we realize, okay, we're now on the map as a Zapier alternative. We are getting some users that are Zapier refugees because they're unhappy for whatever reason with the pricing or the robustness or the quality or the interface. And
I
there
don't
was
like
kind
the
of
way it looks anymore.
a steady
Like,
trickle of those people over to us. But we felt like that was missing an opportunity in a
mhm.
world where there was such a huge tailwind of interest in AI. It felt like we were dramatically underutilizing that tailwind. So in June, we did a big relaunch. Then instead of framing ourselves as the modern alternative to Zapier that differentiated primarily on usability, we became the AI first or AI native automation tool. And we built really, really high quality AI steps so that you could take your
Mhm.
traditional workflow when a form is filled out, automatically add the contact to my CRM. You could add an AI powered lead enrichment and qualification that would work really, really well and be very simple to set up. When we did that AI first launch, it led to another inflection point in the curve. Retention and engagement improved, user love improved, but I still felt like there was too much potential energy locked up in the system in the sense that we had two charts that would really tell the story. The first chart was our overall revenue growth and our active user growth, and that looked pretty good. It was not quite like the vertical line hockey stick, but it was like a very
Mhm.
strong up and to the right. But the number of new signups we got each week was pretty flat. And
Hmm.
so when you have those two in conjunction, it's a good sign and a bad sign. The good sign is it means you have a high retention product that without a ton of top of funnel, you're still able to grow the business because your old users are sticking around and your new users are coming in. And so you're stacking cohorts on top of each other.
Hmm.
But that doesn't work forever. It also means that you haven't figured out how to break through and create a compounding top of funnel strategy that makes you top of mind for your customers at the right time. That's when I wrote a 25-page document for our team and for our investors at the end of the year in December. And the document covered a lot of ground, but the fundamental point of the document was that I thought we were mispositioning ourselves. Our product was actually really good. I thought we were mispositioning ourselves in a way that was failing to take advantage of the AI agent tailwind. And my claim was nobody cares about no code automation. That sounds robotic and nerdy and a lot of work, but everyone wants AI agents to do work for them. And even though agents are actually a technical term, they've just become in the popular lexicon something people care about. I never would have predicted that agent is a weird word. It's not what I would have predicted people would have cared about, but they do. And so my claim was that by repositioning ourselves from the new standard for no code automation to the easiest way to build AI agents that work for you, we would be able to unlock a broader degree of awareness and mindshare that would communicate to the true target audience of everyone who wants to use AI to help themselves that we existed. So I wrote this document. I shared it with investors on like December 21st or December 22nd, something like that, just before Christmas. On December 23rd, I was like, oh, let me put up a little trial balloon. Let me create a LinkedIn post that uses this new framing of the product and creates a cool GIF that shows what this agent can do. So the
Mhm.
LinkedIn post was something like, this is before these posts were all over the place, which they are now. The post was, I made an AI agent that automatically looks up LinkedIn profiles for me. Here's how it works. You give it all the information you have about someone, their name, their email address, their company, their location, and it quickly and accurately finds their LinkedIn profile. You can use this for recruiting, for sales, for meeting preparation. It's pretty cool. And then it was like literally like a four bullet post. It had a GIF that showed a Google spreadsheet with information about the targets on the left, and then it would fill up with the LinkedIn posts on the right. And it got 600,000 impressions and like 7,000
Whoa.
and like 5,000 comments. And I had been posting regularly on LinkedIn for the year prior to that, and I had never cracked 10,000 impressions and 100 comments. And so it's just like, whoa, okay, something about the framing of an AI agent doing work for you, something about the use case, something about the corresponding asset, like something about that. And it was funny because it was literally the first thing I tried. I had written this long document with like, here's my hypothesis that this will resonate. And then like it
Mhm.
literally worked the first time, which has never happened in my career in any situation. It doesn't work every time. And
Yeah.
so that's when we repositioned the product from the new standard for automation to create AI agents that work for you. our
Hmm.
landing page conversion immediately from making that string change at the top of the website. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think it went up from 7% to 10%. Changing
Whoa.
one string at the top from from landing on the page to converting to signing up for an account, like that is a crazy that is a crazy impact from a one tagline change.
Hmm.
And so that was an unlock for us for two reasons. Number one, it was an unlock for us in positioning and messaging. We were no
Hmm.
longer the no code automation tools for nerds that weren't quite happy enough with Zapier. We
Hmm.
were the easiest and most accessible product for everyone who wants to create AI agents that work for them. And that is a much larger set of people. So that was the messaging breakthrough. That also led to a channel breakthrough, which for the first time we had content that people wanted to share on LinkedIn. And so my post started to do really well, but also other people started to post about us because people didn't really post, here's my cool automation that I built on LinkedIn. People love
Hmm.
posting, I just built my first AI agent. It's really cool. Here's what it does for me. And
Huh.
so we had experimented. I think we talked about this in our previous conversation, but to quickly recap it, we had experimented with everything: warm intros from our network, cold outbound email, interacting with relevant threads on Reddit, partner marketing, bottom of funnel SEO. We'd experimented with all of the go-to-market channels that you programmatic SEO and content and editorial content. We'd experimented
Hmm.
with all of the go-to-market channels that would make sense for a product like ours, and we hadn't found the one that quite clicked. And then organic LinkedIn just clicked. And so I went from in December, I had like 4,000 followers, 4 or 5,000 followers. And now I
Yeah.
have, I think, 47,000 followers. I went from getting maybe 10,000 impressions a week to a few 100,000 impressions a week. And then more importantly, a few thousand comments, or at least a few hundred on a good week, a few thousand comments. And it went from no one hearing about Relay anywhere to every day people would see a couple of posts on their LinkedIn feed, either from me or from someone else. And
Hmm.
then that has led to the hockey stick trajectory over the last 4 months because it felt to me like we're finally unlocking the potential energy that was stored in that
Yeah.
product that was really high retention and engagement and people really love. And now we
Yeah.
figured out how to communicate it to people.
And you seem so much happier about the product, so much more relaxed than the like that like tightly bound up that we all have when we're like we know our tool is great, but we haven't found the area for greatness yet. You seem like you've relaxed just a little bit.
Yeah, and there's a few elements to it. On the one hand, I always thought we had a great product, and my role within the company as the founder and CEO is to figure out how to bring that great product to market. And I felt like I wasn't doing justice to the opportunity of what the team had built. And then second, I felt uncomfortable because I was very new to marketing as a discipline. I'd always been in product and technology, and doing a new hard thing that you're not experienced in is can be very demoralizing, especially with something like marketing when so many
Mhm.
things don't work before you find the thing that does work. And now it's pretty fun because now like it's so funny how the product market switch flips overnight. Like even 5 months ago, we had to beg for users who had signed up to meet with us to give us feedback about the product. And
Mhm.
now, if I offer that call to action in more than, 5% of we have like a qualification filter and we offer the opportunity to talk to a member of our team to like 5% of new users. I
Mhm.
offered to 5% of users, boom, my calendar is booked out for like as many slots I have available. And so, but it's just funny how that happens overnight from like I have to
Yeah.
beg people to talk to me about this thing to there's like way more demand than I can possibly satisfy.
Earlier you said it sounded like you had unlocked the channel, like organic LinkedIn as a channel, which absolutely it sounds like it's working for you, but you were using organic LinkedIn before and it wasn't working. It sounds like the big change was the positioning, the repositioning of Relay and how it can have an impact on or like how you communicate it to users
It
to
was a
unlock.
combination of the repositioning of the product overall and me identifying a few topics of interest and post formats that are really resonant.
Mhm.
And these are changing. So in January, I had a few very popular posts that were of the form, I built an AI agent to do X. Now
Mhm.
those posts don't perform as well anymore because everyone's doing they're like if you go to LinkedIn, you'll just see like 50 posts. I built an AI agent to do this. I built an AI agent that like that post format is now saturated. I got my 4 or 5 posts with hundreds of thousands of impressions each, and now that's saturated. Then I realized there was a huge educational opportunity that people were starting to recognize that building AI agents was going to be an important skill for the future of their
Mhm.
careers. And between all the shiny product demos, it wasn't clear how to actually get started. And so one of probably my most surprising LinkedIn post ever was this was back in mid-February. And I posted what I thought was going to be a very generic webinar announcement that would get, I don't know, 30 people interested, 50 people interested. And the post was, if you're interested in learning more about AI agents, but you don't know where to start, I'm hosting a 1 hour live session and we'll build an AI agent together from start to finish, and you'll have a working thing by the end of it. Very simple, one slide, Google slide poster, not well designed at all. Just like build an AI agent with me. Here's the date and time. Let me know if you're interested. And that post got like 700,000 impressions and 6,000 comments.
Whoa.
Um, which those are like big numbers for LinkedIn. And that shocked me because I was like, oh, I was just announcing a webinar. But again, it tapped into this demand where people are like, oh, I want to learn. And so I had a few other live session posts that performed really well. And now I do my webinars once a week. I don't promote them as much on LinkedIn anymore, but I get, a few hundred people every week, and we kind of have that channel really working now. And then I
Mhm.
hadn't had a very successful post for a month or two, about 6 weeks. And then I stumbled across this other post that I thought was pretty cool where a person had created a map of an org chart of AI agents, but I thought the idea was cool, but I didn't really like the execution of it. I was like, oh, that's not real. Like, no one is like the way I know enough about the space to just like, I can tell the way you set that up. Like, that's not how you're actually using them because
Mhm.
it just wouldn't work in that way. So I thought, okay, I can use that. And that post had a lot of engagement. So I was like, oh, I can use that sort of same theme, but I can counterposition a little bit and say, like, here are the 40 AI agents I actually use for marketing. And they're all real, they're all actually running. And I made that post about 2 weeks ago, and it got 1.5 million impressions and 16,000 comments. And I don't know for sure. I haven't been able to validate this. I don't think that's a record for impressions, but I think 16,000 comments is the most comments ever on a LinkedIn post. At least asking ChatGPT and trying to do research, I was unable to find evidence of another LinkedIn post that has received more than 16,000 comments on it. And so, again, I realized like within this content theme of people, because people are, the way I'm kind of thinking about it is there's this really shiny object called an AI agent, and people are kind of circling around it. They're like, what would I use it for? How do I make one? What does it actually look like when people are using it well? And so I don't think any one post format can consistently go viral. But
Mhm.
if you can tap into this need that people are feeling to better understand this really powerful new concept of AI agents and how they're going to use it, that has
Mhm.
turned out to be something that we can durably get people excited about on LinkedIn. And that's just my posts. But I will say that even when my posts were starting to do very well in January, February, I still had some anxiety because it still felt, funnily enough, with the podcast name Predictable Revenue, when we were totally reliant on me to have a viral post, that felt unpredictable and unreliable. And that felt like
Yeah.
a brittle place to be because there's so much about a viral post that is outside of your control. Now we're in a different situation for two reasons. One is we've built up enough of a baseline awareness and a base like between my follower count and the number of people who have heard of Relay that individual posts don't have to go viral. They just have to attract the 2 to 500 right people who are like the
Right.
target audience for that post. So my posts, even if they only hit 10,000, 20,000 impressions and 100 comments, if those 100 comments are for the right people, like I made a post about a specific class of SEO ranking tracking agents that you can build.
Mhm.
If that catches the right 200 social media like SEO and content marketing managers, like that's perfect. That's the TAM, like that's the audience for that post. And then second, like I mentioned, other people are proud to show what they're doing with our product and with
Mhm.
AI agents. And so now every day there are 3 or 4 posts that are not from me. And so now I'm never comfortable. I'm never comfortable as a founder, right? You can never be
Mhm.
comfortable as a founder. So a year ago when we spoke, I felt like we had very strong retention, which is the
Mhm.
foundation of any good business, and that we
Mhm.
just we hadn't figured out how to unlock top of funnel and get people in. Now I feel like we have very strong retention. We have very good top of funnel, but there's still a lot of drop off between those two because there's quite a leap to go from I've heard of AI agents in Relay.app and they're cool to I have
Hmm.
actually set up a running agent successfully and it's adding value to me. There's a lot that has to go right in between those two, and that's the
Yeah.
problem we need to solve now. And once we can unlock that, we'll have like a further inflection in the curve and we can talk again in a year.
Amazing. Yeah, it's such a cool way to think about it in terms of like you've got your retention in place, you've got your the untapped, there's more untapped potential that you're putting into the
I
system.
have way more leads in our CRM that have engaged with multiple of my LinkedIn posts than I possibly have time to contact.
Totally.
So that's a good,
We,
that's compared to where we were a year ago, that's a really good place to be.
I like to think of product market fit on a continuum. It's not
Yeah.
zero or one. It's not binary. It's strength. It starts at zero, you get to one, and you're like, hey, we've got something, and now you're at kind of like seven, and you could
Yeah,
probably get to 30 or
definition
50.
my definition was always like the first and most important definition for our class of product, which is a
Hmm.
self-serve, bottom-up, PLG, B2B SaaS product was if the whole team disappeared for a month, would we have more users and more paying customers and more revenue than we had at the beginning of that month? Because that means there is a sustainable compounding engine that is working. Now that definition doesn't make sense for every kind of business, but for our kind
Hmm.
of business, that means you've got something. If you don't do anything for a month and you end up with more users and more customers than you had the month before, and that
Hmm.
we had already reached when we last spoke a year ago, but the number would have been only a little bit bigger. Like, yes, like our retention was good enough that we wouldn't have lost many people, and our top of funnel was good enough that we would have gained some people. But we
Yeah.
would have, if we all disappeared for a month, we would have grown, but grown slowly. But that's an important foundation because it means you got something. You got something, and then you just have to bend the curve. And now
Hmm.
we're at the point where like the curve's pretty good, and now I'm just looking at like, oh, if we improve this element of it, we bend it. If we improve this element, we bend it. And now it's cool because yes, it's a spectrum, but I think we've crossed from the zero to the one. And once you've
Hmm.
crossed from the zero to the one, if you just get 1% better every week, that starts to have the compounding impact that leads to like long-term sustained hockey stick growth.
Yeah. So what comes next for you, like to bend the curve even further?
Our product strategy is to be the easiest to use and most intuitive way for less technical people to get the value of AI agents and workflows working on their behalf. So it's the
Hmm.
kind of person who's just starting to play around with ChatGPT, just starting to experience the magic, and they're like, "Ooh, this ChatGPT thing is pretty cool when I'm typing to it. Can it do more for me when I'm sleeping?" Like that
Hmm.
person who has that thought, like, "Oh, could it do more for me?" I want to be there for that person and say, "Let me teach you how this technology can do more for you while you're sleeping." And that means that we need to build the simplest and most intuitive product experience, the best set of inspirational materials of here's what you can do with this thing, and then the
Hmm.
best set of educational materials of here's how to do something with this thing. And there's some overlap between inspiration and education. Like I make a lot of YouTube videos that both showcase here's something you could build an AI agent to do, and
Hmm.
here's how to do it.
Yeah.
Um, so those are the big three. So from a product perspective, we are not yet as intuitive as I would like to be. I think we're best in class. Like I think we are the easiest to use product, and the reason I know that is because users tell us, "I tried with this, I tried with that, I tried with that, I failed with all of them, but I succeeded with Related App."
Hmm.
But I still spend I do 6 or 7 customer calls per day. Every customer
Wow.
call, I identify 5 or 6 things where I'm like, shoot, that's still not easy enough. That's still not easy enough. That's still not easy enough. So we need to refine, 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 refine. Second, we need to show people what's possible. So we have about, I think we have like 70 templates in our gallery right now. That needs to
Hmm.
be thousands. There are
Yeah.
thousands of things AI agents can do for people. So we want to build up a much bigger template gallery, mostly for inspiration, but also just to be able to import and get up and running quickly, both
Hmm.
by us and by our community and our customers. And then third, I want to build a better educational curriculum. I'm doing these 1 hour build with me live sessions every week. I'm recording a couple of YouTube videos every week. But whether or not people end up using Relay.app, the thing I need to communicate is learning how to work with AI agents is not optional. You don't get to be skeptical about this one.
Mhm.
You can bury your head in the sand and pretend that AI agents are not going to have an impact on the workplace, but I think that is a very poor career decision and business decision. So the way I'm
Mhm.
framing it is AI agents are happening. They're underhyped. This is my hot take. AI agents are way underhyped right now. Like the world as a whole does not understand how much work is going to change once we get better at creating and adapting these things. And
Mhm.
so it is a foundational skill that you know how to create and work with AI agents, just like it was a foundational skill for the last 40 years to know Microsoft Excel. You could not get any sort of job doing any knowledge work if you were not basically functional in Excel. You couldn't be a
Mhm.
marketer, doing content calendars. You couldn't be a salesperson creating a spreadsheet of leads. You couldn't run a cupcake bakery managing your inventory. Like Excel was a foundational skill for the last 40 years of work. Creating
Mhm.
AI agents that work for you will be a foundational skill for the next however many years of work. And so that's what I want to communicate. And then I want to build a bunch of educational resources that make that feel less scary and more like a
Mhm.
fun opportunity to learn.
Yeah. I mean, strong agree. I have AI agents and prompts and meta prompts that I use that run my business, and I feel like Superman sometimes, or Iron Man, where
Yeah.
like the things that I'm able to do are incredible compared to, I can do the other day. I got off a client call and I took the transcript and I fired it into one of my meta prompts and then I pushed that into another system I have. I use Windsurf on my
Yeah.
side and I've got all my content. I got all my, and it wrote a full SDR sales playbook in like a
Yeah.
minute. And I'm like, I've done this and it takes 3 months to
Yeah.
do and customize all the different things and the pieces. And it's crazy, ugly, tedious work. And all that tedium was gone. And it was like, I spent a lot of time on a really good prompt and I can reuse that. I'm like, the pace
So
just accelerates.
it's honestly amazing. Let me tell you about a funny customer interaction I had earlier this week. The customer works for a recruiting agency,
Hmm.
and as part of their recruiting process, they have a bunch of candidates and a bunch of clients, and they need to generate documents that indicate when a client is a good fit for a candidate. And they basically create a matching document, which is like, here, client, we found Colin for you. Here's why we think he's a good fit for your open role. Here's the key elements of his resume that make sense to
Hmm.
you. And it probably would have taken a recruiter 30 minutes to write this document. They had a template and they had a format, but you do have to read through the resume. You do have to match it to the JD and the client's kind of location and culture and whatever it might be. And so this customer of ours built an AI agent that automatically takes in all the information they have about the client, takes in all the information about they have about the candidates, it figures out the matches, and it writes these matching documents at like 95 to 99% of human quality. And she sent me a message that's like, oof, this one took like 700 AI credits. Like, is there a way I can reduce the cost of that? Like, 700 sounds like a lot. And I was like, first, yes, here are ways that you can reduce the AI cost. You can send less data, you can use a cheaper model. But 700 AI credits is like $1.30. And if that thing saved you 5 hours for $1.30, that's actually, I know it's self-serving for me to say that, but that's a pretty good deal. And then
That's
she
a great
replied like,
deal.
"Whoa, yeah, when you put it that way, $1.30 for all that stuff it did for me is a great deal."
It's not even worth writing an email about $1.35. Like if you overcharged me for $1.35, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. You know?
Exactly. I remember listening to this Naval Ravikant podcast where he makes this provocative statement that like every person should value their time at $5,000 an hour. Even if your
Mhm.
actual rate is far below that, it's just a good way for you to frame in your mind that time is so valuable. Time is so valuable. And so when you
Mhm.
use that frame, it's like, whoa, this saved me 30 minutes and I'm only being charged $1.30. Like what a huge surplus. And that another example that I was working on yesterday, we was a LinkedIn content research use case where a lot of people now it's become pretty natural to me, but even now I have my AIs that are helping me I come up with good ideas of content based on what I'm doing, based on what's interesting to other people. What this LinkedIn content research agent does is it looks at the top 100 or 200 posts on LinkedIn every week in aggregate. It identifies how many comments they got, how many engagements they got, what the hook was, what the content theme was, who the author was, and it writes a 5-page report saying like here's the kind of hook formats that are working well on LinkedIn, here are the visual aids that are working well on LinkedIn, here are the topics that seem to be resonant. And
Hmm.
that's how I came up with the org chart idea. One of the things that was turned up in my AI report was like, oh, it seems like people are interested in this like org chart about AI agent thing. Can you do something cool and unique about that? Imagine how much you would have to pay an agency or a human to create that report personalized to me. Because I don't want just generic content. I want things that's about AI agents and AI workflows and AI models. What would it
Hmm.
cost someone to produce that 5 page report every week? $1,000 a week? Like way more, $5,000 a week. Like
Yeah.
I don't even know how much it would cost, but you know how much it costs me? 40 cents.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
I had a similar moment the other day. I was looking at a list and I'm like, okay, there's 25,000 accounts here. I've got their LinkedIn description. Normally, it's a client with a really tricky ideal customer profile. I'm like, traditionally, what would happen is their SDRs would go and take a look and go, yep, good fit, bad fit. And I was like, okay, well, I can use an API call and run it across here. And I was like, well, how much is it going to cost me if I use the bigger, more expensive model? And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, it's going to cost me $12 instead of $4. I was like, $12 it is. And it looked at 25,000 and it gave me good fit and the subclass.
Yeah,
And I
because
was
the
like,
way we should think
it's a
about it is
no-brainer.
that $12 and $4 are both $0. Right? Like compared to the
Yeah.
value of
Yeah.
what's being generated here, $12 is such a ridiculous bargain.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, especially if your time is worth $5,000 an hour.
Yeah.
There's a thing I want to ask you, and maybe we edit this out because it's a bit of a detour. Feel free to tell me to shut up and I'm annoying, but you're probably one of the few people I could have this conversation with because I'm a user of a lot of products like yours. None quite like Relay. I was an early Zapier user. I'm currently doing Relay-esque things in Windsurf because I like to
Yep.
have the control. I use clay.com quite a bit, and it's similar but very different, right? It's very much like go to market focused.
Yep.
The thing that I hate, I shouldn't say hate, but the thing that I'm getting, I think I'm one of the more advanced users of clay. The thing I'm getting that I think could be solved is the manual click labor of setting up clay. The number of things and times I have to go and redo the same thing. And yes, you could, there's templates and there's things here, but I'm like, I can speak to AI. I can speak to an agent. Why can't an AI agent go and set up Clay for me? Why can't it go set up? And I saw a video of some guy who is using I think one of your competitors. I won't say the name because I think they were in a similar space. And he put all the docs into Opus and then said, hey, output a JSON file with the
Yep.
config. I tried this with Clay like a year ago and stuff wasn't there yet. I'm like, so one, are you working on this already? Two, if not, please. Because like I'll be a Relay Power user in a heartbeat if I could do this and I don't have to do all the manual click labor, which feels like, yeah.
So, yes, we're working on it. It's counterintuitively a natural language experience to build a workflow or build an agent is harder than a natural language experience like Lovable or Bolt or V0 to build a
Hmm.
website. That was kind of counterintuitive to me at first, but then when I dug into the details, I could figure out why it's harder to build a workflow between
Yeah.
knowing the exact capabilities of all the individual tools, and there's way less training data of open source projects. And so I'm
Yeah.
guessing the competitor of ours you're referencing is N8N. N8N is a
Hmm.
great product and a great company. It's for a more technical audience than ours. They really lean into like self-hosting and open source, and you can input and output JSON representations of your workflows, and therefore you can go to ChatGPT or Claude and say like, give me a JSON of an end-to-end workflow. I don't know how well it'll work to actually plug it in. I'm sure some people have succeeded with it. I'm sure it takes a lot of prompt engineering,
Yeah.
but no, what we want to do is in the Relay product. And another thing I'll note is that pretty much every product in our space has some sort of natural language experience for creating
Hmm.
automations. The problem is what most of them do is you write in like, I want to create a workflow that whenever a new email comes in Gmail, creates a row in a spreadsheet. And then it'll create a partially correct workflow that you don't understand, and you don't know how to get it all the way to correct. Do you modify the natural language prompt? Do you modify the workflow in the sort of like the structured workflow builder? And I think this is the biggest opportunity for us in product activation. Can we create the first really good natural language experience for coming up with an idea of what agent to build, figuring out how to structure that agent, actually
Hmm.
creating the first draft of that agent, iterating on that agent as you test it with real world situations, turning that agent on and giving you the oversight over that agent as it's working as you build confidence. If we can build the first like really good natural language system to do all of that, That's what's going to change the activation and bend the curve further.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically building a product manager because these, like, there's all these users that are like, hey, I want to do this thing. Users have a total misconception about what Relay can do from like every different angle. And like,
And it's not just about relay. There's a problem for everyone, which is articulating clearly what you want is not easy.
yeah,
But like, you'd be shocked at the number of customer support requests I get that are just like, it's not working, or I want to connect Monday and calendar. It's like, okay, you want to connect Monday and calendar. Can you give me more information about how you want to connect Monday and calendar? Which board in
hmm
Monday? Which calendar in calendar? Do you want to
hmm
create new events in calendar when a new item is created Monday? Do you want to do vice versa? Do you want to update them? And so one of the things that we've realized is that the most important problem is not converting the textual prompt to the workflow. It's
hmm
helping the user articulate what they want in a way that an AI can understand.
Totally. I mean, don't you remember your first writing your first specification that you handed to engineers, and then they went and built the thing and came back a week or a month later, and you're like, this is not what I meant.
So I remember I used to, I was a computer science student, and then I used to teach introductory computer science. And I remember at the beginning of every computer science class, the first thing most teachers or professors would do is they would do an exercise where they would stand at the front of the class and they would say, "Tell me how to throw this apple core away," as an example. And people
hmm
would say, "Walk over to the trash can and throw the apple core away." And the professor wouldn't move. Then they would say, "Turn 90 degrees to your left, walk one pace forward, and throw the apple core away." And then he would like throw the apple core on the ground. Then they would say, "Now turn 90 degrees, go one pace forward, extend your arm fully, release the apple core from your fingers into." And the point of that exercise was to show that if you don't tell a computer exactly what to do in exactly the syntax that the computer understands, it will
Yeah,
not be able to do the right thing. And that was always a part of introductory programming. Now, LLMs are cool in that you can speak to them way more naturally. Like an LLM, you can say, "Please go throw this apple core away," in a way that you couldn't say to like a standard computer programming language. But if you want the LLM to do something complex for you, you
hmm
still need to articulate it somewhat carefully. And so I
yeah,
think that's a skill that we really need to help people build, where let's say you're building, this is an experience I've had many times. People will go to ChatGPT or they'll go to Relay and they'll write a prompt that's like, "Create a blog post based on this idea." And then they're surprised when the blog post is generic AI slop. That's because all you told it was one sentence to write a generic blog post about an idea. What could it possibly do other than write generic AI slop? And so that's what it did. And so part of my goal in creating educational materials is not just how do you build a great workflow or how do you build an agent, but how do you think and communicate in a way that it will be easy for the AI to know what you want it to do?
and that's not necessarily intuitive to help the user understand all the different models and the structure and how things and the level of specificity that you need to get to go from I want to build an AI agent to I am capable of communicating specifically the type of
Yeah,
agent that
and
I
that's why
want.
I think a lot of this is going to be crazy to say, but I think a lot of the AI agent influencers are doing the community a disservice by creating things that are way too complex. Like if you're on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, you'll see these diagrams with hundreds of nodes and dozens of prompts. No one is going to get that working. No one is going to be able to figure out how to adapt that and get it working. And I'm very happy when I get mocked in the other direction because I post very simple use cases. And every
Mhm.
time there's someone in my comments saying, "This isn't a real AI agent. That's so simple. Couldn't you have just done that in Zapier with 5 clicks?" Or like, "I could have done this with one line of Python." I'm like, go ahead. Go ahead, do
You
that
could.
with one line of Python if you want to. My goal is to communicate broadly applicable, broadly accessible, useful stuff that people can actually get
Mhm.
working and get value out of. And so I kind of know I'm in the right when I'm triggering some of the people like the more pedantic folks who are like, "Well, that's not technically an agent," or "That's not really the best way to write this prompt." I'm like, it may not be the best, but it's gonna be the thing that works in the most understandable way for a less technical user than you are.
Also define agent.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing where I think people on Twitter and on LinkedIn are like totally missing the point. There's all these debates about what is a workflow versus what is an agent. Is it goal-oriented tool calling in which the agent determines the flow control, or is it something else? Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the technical difference between a workflow and an agent. And it's sort of a spectrum between them because you can have a workflow or agent that has some more deterministic components and then some components where the AI has more judgment of what tools to call and how many times to call them.
Mhm.
Here's what I think people care about. People care about is how am I going to use this AI stuff and what is it going to do for me? And there are three basic modalities that matter. Number one, you're going to have a chatbot. You probably are already using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. You're starting to build intuition about what a chatbot is really good for. It can do research for you. It can brainstorm with you. It can be a thought partner and a sparring partner with you. It can kind of create one off text based content. That's cool. Second modality is a copilot. If you've used Airtable, you've seen the AI assistant on the side. If you've used Notion, you've seen the AI assistant on the side. If you've used Cursor or Windsurf, of course, you've seen the AI copilot on the side. That means you are in a SaaS tool accomplishing something like writing a document or writing code or making a presentation. And an AI, a Clippy style AI, is your interactive assistant that's helping you do that.
Mhm.
That's super useful in a bunch of contexts. And then the third category is what I refer to colloquially as an AI agent, and that is not a chatbot and not a copilot. It is an autonomous system that is doing work on your behalf behind the scenes. And that's the definition of agent that I think matters to people, which is like, I'm not going to talk to it in ChatGPT. It's not my copilot on the side of my, Google Docs or Microsoft Word, but it is going to automatically run 30 minutes before every meeting. It's going to go fetch the information about the person I'm meeting, and it's going to send me a nice briefing notification over Slack. That's what people should think of as an agent, even though what I just described to you is technically a workflow.
Who cares? It's doing work for me.
Exactly. That's the definition that matters to people.
Totally. I mean, you summed it up so well. The actual definition doesn't matter. It's, is this doing work for me?
Right. Like, and the reason I'm so excited about AI agents, I remember when my previous company, Timeful, was acquired by Google in 2015.
Mhm.
And the head of the division who acquired the company and I had a really cool conversation about how we thought productivity tools were in need for a refactor. Like, yeah, we'd had this email client and this calendar client and this document editor and this spreadsheet for the last 40 years. That was a paradigm invented by, or 30 years invented by Microsoft in the mid 80s. That is that the optimal way for productivity tools to help us get things done? A calendar, to-do list, contact manager. And so we are so excited about this idea of a refactor, but the time wasn't right for it. The time wasn't right. And so there was still another 10 years of like building better email clients and building better calendar clients and building better document editors. And now I think the refactor is coming. The refactor is coming in that, yeah, of course, we're still going to have an email client, but the email client's role in our life is going to be less central. The more central role will be the agent or agents that we have doing work over email on our behalf. And so I think in the future, we're not really going to care which CRM we pick or which email client we pick, basically which database we pick. We're going to care about which agents we build on top of it that do useful stuff.
Because once the agents get to a certain level, it won't matter what CRM you have. If the agent can go and recreate your Salesforce instance in HubSpot, you could just
Yeah,
pay the
no,
agent.
and I don't want to underplay the importance of really good data modeling and really good
Mhm.
infrastructure. Like CRMs are a very hard data modeling problem. They're a very hard infrastructure problem. There's a lot of customizability required. There are still going to be better CRMs and worse CRMs. I just don't think they're going to be judged by how easy it is to click the buttons to update the thing because an agent's going to be doing that for us.
Totally. I think the new UX is like no UX, right? To your
Yeah.
point. It's not about what it looks like, it's what it can do for you. And
Right.
not in
And
the
and
what it
and
helps you
here's the
accomplish.
here's the really cool thing. When you describe it like that, the next UX is no UX, like that sounds very abstract to a non-technical person, but the really cool thing is we all already have a mental model for this. We've all worked with people. We've all been an intern or hired an intern or been a contractor or hired a contractor or been a boss or had a boss. And so we know we've all, had a plumber come to our house and help us fix a leak. So we know how to articulate a problem that we have I have this leak under my kitchen sink. We know how to communicate the success criteria of the leak being fixed and that you're going to be paid some money after fixing it. And yeah, here's, some other information like, oh, here's the bathroom if you need it and grab a drink from the fridge or whatever. Like
Mm.
we all have experience of delegating work to other people. And so we can, and yes, delegating work to an AI is going to be different in some ways, but we all have a ton of fundamental intuition about how to delegate work. And that's what's going to make this whole refactor possible because we already have a mental model for it. We already work with other people.
I love that. I think that's a perfect place to land this episode. Jacob, thank you so much for coming on and resharing the journey and like keeping us updated. And absolutely, I'm going to put it in my calendar from a year from now. We're going to redo this. We're going to update the episode because this has been
Hopefully,
a
our
really,
current growth curve will look cute at that time.
I can't wait.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
Always. I could talk for hours, but I want to be respectful of your time and the seven other, customer calls you got to take today. If people want
Yeah.
to find out more about Relay, what's the best place for them to look?
Follow me on LinkedIn and join one of our live building sessions. You can sign up at events.relay.app.
Awesome. I'm going to throw your LinkedIn, a post to the LinkedIn post that I saw. And then I've got the social media starter pack, the social media research starter pack, because as you were describing it, I'm like, that's what I need to do. I'm
Yeah,
not doing that. I'm going to go do that after this call.
awesome. Well, let me know if you run into any issues, and I'm here to help.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming
All
on
right,
the
thanks,
show.
Colin. Talk to you soon.